what is evaluation? Evaluation measures how well these activities have met our objectives to skill and equip and train teachers. That is the change we wanted to have. Did we succeed? Right. So it also, the extent of changes. So of the 2,000 teachers that went through our program, we were only successful in 400 because based on our results after our test. Why? What we didn't consider, which impacted on the outcome, the effectiveness of our program, because we're going to measure effectiveness, is literacy. So the material we developed for this training intervention, they didn't understand it. And we didn't include practical sessions. It was too theoretical. We had this professor from the university and he spoke right over their heads. It was the wrong methodology we used. We should have broken them into little groups and each give them a little mathematical assignment. Practically, that would have increased the knowledge. That's the kind of information you're looking for from your evaluation. Was it relevant? Was it effective? Was it efficient? Did it work or not? Why not? So, evaluation can make a difference in bringing about this change. For this to happen, it's underpinned by certain principles. Data collection at the start of the program. And I'm going to show you some examples in a moment. So, the baseline. Really, to measure change, you've got to start somewhere. Because how do you know the change would have happened or how big the change is? And that's always so fascinating to me when people ascribe pass rates to teacher interventions and I look for evidence. How do you know that? How do you know that is because of that intervention? Where's the baseline? So here's another thing. When you look at proposals, when you assess those proposals as they come in, not only are you looking for a theory of change, because that will give you the security of they know that they know. By doing winter camps for teachers, it's actually going to work because they've done it 200 times before. They've got the evidence because here's their baseline. They can give you case studies, they can give you examples, and they can cite it and relate it to their curricula, their methodology. So they know the general status of math teachers is X. And therefore, if you pay them the 2 million rand and you implement their program, they can guarantee you the success on this side. Because there's the baseline. So one of the big things is the data that is contained in the program proposal. Which is why I said yesterday, it may sound very easy to design your own programs, but it's more difficult than that. Because if you design it yourself, you design your own program, you implement your own program, you manage your own program, you've got to do all of that. Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You still need the baseline data. So if you decide you've now already got a relationship with these 2,000 teachers, and because you want to leverage these 2,000 schools, you want to expand your education program, you're going to expand the program now from the teachers to the learners. You can't assume the same baseline is going to carry. Because that's what a lot of companies do. Well, we're already working in the Free State and in the Northern Cape with these teachers. Now these teachers tell us, can't you write a little maths book and then print the book? You can put your logo on it and then you can give it to us, because then, we really know the program works. What I find is that companies so quickly add because they want to leverage the investment that's already there, but they forget some of the mechanics that's got to go into that process. Then you've got to have a baseline for the children, because you want to also then test the impact these books are going to have on the children. Okay. So data collection at the start of a program. Now, if you don't do that, it's going to be really tough in the evaluation process. You've also, and here's another question for you. How many of you that fund programs, any program, have control groups? How many of you that fund any program have a control group?
We only have it
for consumer education. So, how big is your program? How many consumers?
We've got 3 programs, all on 2,000.
2,000. How big is your control group? Let me just share with you my thinking behind this. You want to know what was the change, right? Compared to what? What was the change of your program? You're going to know now if 2,000 teachers got better. That's just the first part of the question. What was the change for those 2,000 teachers? The second part of the question is compared to what? If you do a maths literacy program for learners in 20 schools, and the maths pass rates increase by 20%, is that good or is that bad? If you feed 20,000 children every day, was that a successful program? Compared to what? So, just think about the information companies put out. They tell us they spent 100 million rand. They provided primary access to healthcare to 1 million people. Full stop. How many people are we in the country? It's actually 55. So is 1 million big change, big impact or not? Now, here's the problem. If you're already cash constrained to pay out 2 million rand for this program, plus 200,000 rand for the evaluation costs, where's the money going to come from the control group?
Sorry, I need to ask, what's a control?
A control group is the people, the first group is the people who receive your program. But to know that that change has happened, you've got to have a group that didn't get it. Didn't get that intervention. Because how would you know that the change was good or bad? So if you've got a 2,000 maths teacher program, and you look at the change that happened, how do you know it's because of your program that the change happened? How do you know the level of change? Was it lots of change or little change? Was it effective change or was it ineffective change? How efficient was the change? What's the magnitude of the change? And the question is compared to what? So if you if you've, and this is, I just want to make the point. So if you brag about the 3 million rand for 400 bursaries, what is, compared to what? You know, compared to the total number of students, or I just want you to give, the point that why I want to raise this is I need you to anchor your findings in something. Otherwise, it's meaningless. I'm going to give you and then you.
Do your control groups need to be the same size as your groups or your initiative? Yeah.
Let me be blunt. When we start with this, because it's a non-existent practice, anything will do. Honestly, let's be practical here. There's no way in the world that if we do 2,000 maths teachers and 26,000 or maths teachers that we've missed, that we're going to compare. I'm just asking for the first time, will you please give consideration? At this point in time, the number is the least of our concern because it is a cost thing. It is a data management. It is a data collection problem. I'm just saying, let's just consider this in our practice.
I just want to make a suggestion. It doesn't mean that you have to select another 2,000 participants. So what you can do is, if you use the example of 2,000 teachers, you can give them all the pre-test, do your intervention on 1,000 of them, keep 1,000 for the control group, and then afterwards just give the intervention to the group that didn't need the intervention in the first place. Because for ethical reasons, you cannot select 2,000 people, do intervention on 1,000, then just leave the other 1,000. But you can use the 1,000 for your control, but then they also need to receive the intervention afterwards. So then you try, and that's also a nice comparison between the groups.
Sorry, did you want to say something?
But well, I had the same question because I'm trying to work calculating specifically for issues, and then we say we have to anchor it to something. So the statistics which I would use, we should be saying that we should compare the number of issues we're providing to the number of young people entering tertiary education, or the number of young people entering tertiary education who do not have financial assistance.
I actually think it doesn't matter yet. I think you really, I don't want to be so prescriptive. I'm just saying, when we look at your results,
Yes.
the question is which means what? Can I get a sense of the scale, the complexity? That's what I'm trying to answer. So 2,000 breakfasts, is it good or is it bad? Do you know what I'm saying? What does it mean? Does it mean 20,000 children compared to 40,000? I'm trying to understand, what do you mean by we were successful? You know, our outcome was, our impact was. I'm like, so what? Which means, kind of thing. It's like there's a comma, not a full stop. Sorry, I just want to, I'll come back to you now.
I had a question on the this audit. The other question that I have is, if all of us start doing that, I'm afraid that it will be so discouraged not to do anything. Because everything will be dropped in the ocean from
Yes.
Yes, so you think 1 million people are not that's all.
And that's why I get so frustrated about the inefficiencies, because we're so self-congratulatory on the impact of 8 billion that I'm like, oh, you know, like, I'm just, that is, in my humble opinion, why we're so inefficient as a sector. Because we just like, we've got blinkers. You know, we've like done this little thing. But do you really understand how big the need is? Number one. Number two, and I say this with the greatest respect, some of us have got no business in certain development aspects. Because our design of our interventions and the outcomes of our interventions is so insignificant that it's actually a total waste. Let's talk about maths, because we've been using it as a case study. So what happened now? I mean, just look at the newspapers last week around maths. Do you know what I'm saying? So how much have we spent? And that's why I'm saying we only focus on the 2,000 of grade 8 teachers that we have now given maths teaching skills to. We're putting a Band-Aid on that problem, but we're not fixing the problem. But we say we've educated 2,000. So then 2,000 more children should have taken maths. Not so. That's why we've capacitated them. That's why we've skilled them. Shouldn't we have considered as simultaneously while we trained the teacher, we should have had some sort of tiny little program to encourage children, more children to take maths as well? Can you just saying? Because our solution is just 20% of the problem. It doesn't address the whole problem. And this is my concern with our current development practice. And I'm just thinking, what is it that we can do differently to scale and increase impact? And my concern is here that we're not even in what we're doing best practice. Because if you want to evaluate, the first question of research, and Brenda as a research expert, will tell you, where's your control group? Because you've got to provide evidence of the evidence you've just provided. That's the basics of research. So I just want to stress, I'm not saying all of you must all have control groups now, but you've got to consider, if you start monitoring and you start evaluating, how do we know the change that happened, and this is the aspect we'll cover later today, is attrition. How do we know it's your impact?